Good afternoon. Welcome to The Exchange. As the Black church lost its way, where are we with regard to the Black church and its responsibility to our communities? Can we expect to see the Black church emerge again as the very cornerstone of African American life? We'll answer that question today, as we'll have in the studio Bishop Aretha Morton, who has done the work of the Black church for an incredibly long time and is a staple in our communities. And then we want to talk about culture, arts and culture. We don't see it as much in schools anymore. We don't see it as much in our communities anymore. But today we're going to have Franchon Beeks on with us to talk about the importance of arts and culture as a healing space in Black life. And then finally, we're going to have a conversation. Don't miss this conversation about the anti-Stop Snitching campaign, that somehow silence breeds violence. We're going to have that conversation today right here on The Exchange. So what I don't want you to do is touch that dial. The Exchange starts right now. I'm your host, Dr. Donald Morton. Thank you for tuning in to The Exchange. Does silence breed violence? We want to dig into that question today. And on today's broadcast, we have our Wilmington Police Department's Chief of Police, Bobby Cummings. We also have Anthony Harris from the Wilmington Police Department, and then also Hanif Salam, a community activist and vocal voice in our communities for systemic change. We want to kind of begin our conversation. I want to thank you guys for coming to hang out with us today. The chief's in the middle, and so we want to make sure that we do want to begin with you though, kind of as an umbrella statement to talk about this whole problem that we have with not snitching. And we'll go to Anthony Harris about how he intends on addressing that. But let's talk about this whole umbrella of the culture of not snitching.
Well, again, Anthony's going to, again, thanks for having us come out to get this message out. Anthony is going to talk deeper into the issue and why we are where we are. But there's a culture right now that believes if you snitch, you're going to get stitches, and that you should not tell on someone for doing a particular crime. That so much stems to the individuals who are involved in a particular crime, but it gets a little bit wider than that, and it's filtered through our entire community. So Anthony's got this message that silence breeds violence, that when you listen to what he has to say and the way it's presented, you're going to see why we are at the state that we're in right now.
Outstanding. Thank you so much,
You're
Chief. Let's talk about it, man. It seems at least the media portrays it. I'm sure that the community portrays it as well, which I'm assuming is the reason for which silence breeds violence emerges as kind of an answer to what we're seeing in our communities. And that is, we're not really talking about the crimes that are perpetrated in our communities. And I'm assuming that this addresses that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the show.
Yes,
Chief, thank you for your support, sir, and thank you for being here as well.
No problem.
I'd like to start off by saying I'm currently working in an alternative school called Parkway Academy. And how this program came about was I was actually walking down the hallway one day, and one of the students was talking to a principal about an incident that had occurred in the school. And immediately another kid was walking down the hallway and uttered, "Snitches get stitches." And immediately the kid shut down. And the kid refused to talk to the principal at that point. And when I saw this, I started to think about how this snitches get stitches has affected our community, not only in Wilmington, but all over the United States. And I started writing down ideas and thinking of different slogans and things to come up with to try to counter it. And snitches get stitches made me think about silence breeds violence. The reason silence breeds violence came above was when you think about the word silence, that means you watch an activity or something happens, you know it can harm someone, but you choose not to say anything about it. Breeds is when you allow something to reproduce over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And violence is a great force of destruction. And I started to think about, I was in detectives for 17 years, and when I started out back in '96, we could go out and talk to neighbors. Neighbors would talk to us about what was going on in the communities. Neighbors would call and volunteer information, and it wasn't hidden. They stood up as the owners of their neighborhoods. And they were talking to the police on a regular basis. They were giving us phone calls. They had school resource officers. They had community officers who they would actually go up to and talk about in open about crime that was occurring in their neighborhoods. And so what I did was I started to think about how to present this program. And I thought about this. Anyone able to zoom in on this? And I thought about this logo. And if you look at it, with the fingers up, the whispering, and how all the crimes are created as a result of that. And what I started to think about was how one neighborhood is shut down. And the way I break it down is the element of the crime, how the element of the crime develops in a neighborhood. Let's start off with a neighborhood with no crime. You got one person in the neighborhood. Snitches get stitches. I'm not going to tell on them. That person is surveying your neighborhood. They start off with 1, 2, 3. Next thing you know, it's a thoroughfare for crime.
Because of silence.
Because of silence.
Okay.
And I've been in a situation before where I see a person in my neighborhood, 1 or 2 people, and I just simply walk out and just stand there. And once they start to observe, there are people observing your activities. In some cases, it may rid the neighborhood. However, the next is a phone call to the police. This young man is out in my neighborhood. This is what he's wearing. He's been here for a while. We arrive. We talk to that person. You're sending a message. You're sending a message to that community, or you're sending a message to that one person that we're not going to allow this in our neighborhood. And that's empowerment. You're empowering a community that you still have control. It's not the police that controls the neighborhoods.
Community
it's
controls.
the community that control. We are a necessary tool. The police department is a tool to you. We're here to help you.
Here's my bit of a pushback, right? The whole idea of not talking, right, is not developed in a silo, right? There are reasons for which individuals in urban communities, whether that be because there lacks a relationship with the police department, whether that be fear, but people are not talking just not to talk. They're not talking for reasons.
Right, and I think there are a few reasons why. One, we have to look at our officers that are patrolling the community, right? The officer spoke to in his beginnings in the late 90s, where he was able to walk through communities and converse with the community members. Today, most officers on WPD, in my opinion, do not take that same approach. They come in more authoritative into the community, or more on a us versus them mentality. At least that's the perception. So if it's us versus them, why should I talk to you and tell you anything, right? Another thing we have to look at is really protecting the identity of those who come and speak forth, right? A lot of the problem that you run into today is someone may choose to speak up, right? Because, that is the tagline, snitches get stitches, but there are a lot of people in our communities who want this stuff to stop, particularly this violence, right? So they may not have a problem with coming up and speaking forward. But in the way our system works, if I come up and speak up, the person that gets incarcerated can get a report that lays out exactly what I told, my full government name and everything, and he has access to this while in prison.
Wow.
Right? So I've often heard stories where you have guys on a pod in prison pulling out their paperwork from the courthouse saying, look, John's in my paperwork. Who's in your paperwork? Oh, I got Ronnie in my paperwork. And they're literally making phone calls. It's even got so feared to the fact that the Department of Corrections does not even monitor who they have housed together.
So how do we, because that has to be a very real concern, right? As you develop program,
right?
Is there anything within the program that addresses that? Is this an ever evolving program? Because that would concern me.
I agree. The first thing I want to say is snitches get stitches. The original meaning of snitches get stitches was if you and I commit a crime together.
Yes, sir.
I get caught and I start telling on you because you're my co-conspirator and you get arrested. I'm coming after you. But what has happened was psychologically this has damaged our entire neighborhoods, because now the neighborhood personnel who had nothing to do with the original crime is now thinking that I'm a snitch. But what I need you to understand is by you talking to the police and you're not involved in a crime, you're not a snitch. You're simply the owner of your neighborhood, and you're taking pride, ownership, and empowerment of your neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
The second thing I want to say is the criminal justice system will be involved in this. The judges, the attorneys, the city administration, the city government will be involved in this, where we can sit down at the table and come up with a cohesive plan to avoid actions, like you said now, information that is available to the inmate during the process. So that's a part of our program as well.
You want to say something about that? Chief?
Yeah, I was just going to say another component of this that we're trying to combat is building those relationships again in the community.
Okay.
If we rebuild those relationships, we get out into the community, the officers are getting out of cars, we're being more proactive and developing those relationships that you were talking about that occurred in the 90s. We're out there even doing that as a staff. So our staff gets out and we're out in the streets too.
I want to thank because I think some of that information is in the minds of our communities are not stupid.
Right.
They're very, very intelligent people.
Yes.
And it's not that they don't want to help. I think the
Exactly.
program that you've developed is a phenomenal one. As long as we understand that there may be cracks in the system that we have not previously addressed, that we need to address now. Because otherwise, we just got another good program that
Right.
nobody's going to participate in if I'm in a very real fear for my life and whether or not I'm going to be here. So it's easier to turn a blind eye and say, yeah, I'm good, because if my information is going to be provided to the very individuals that are being prosecuted or what have you, then that's a very real concern.
See, but also the blind eye doesn't take you out of the level of fear either. I mean, the fear continues, whether you speak or not. You're going to remain in that fear. And I'm not going to quote this exactly if if I may get it wrong.
Okay.
But then they say for violence and evil to continue is for good men and women to do nothing. So that process will continue if we never step up and say anything. So at some point, we all have to take ownership in our neighborhood if we plan to get it back. And does that put us at risk sometimes? Yes, it does. But again, living is a risk.
Any final thoughts?
Yes, because that was a valid point. But with a risk, let's at least try to match it with a reward. I'm not familiar
Yes.
with all the components of the program, but in the hood,
Yes.
money talks. So I mean, let's reward those people for sharing information, or find some way to reward people who are interested in building relationships with you guys.
Even in
Really?
Philadelphia, I think there were 3 children that were a person that had stolen a car or something,
recently,
right? Just
yes.
recently. And they immediately came up with $110,000 as a reward for an individual that would turn those guys in, whoever those guys are.
Right.
So I think to your point, some level of reward that suggests matching the risk
Right.
that I'm about to take
Understood.
is something that we need to look at.
Actually, I have to sit down and have a conversation with Crime Stoppers as well, because they're certainly interested in the program.
Gotcha.
So.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us and talking with us. We'll be right back. We've got some sponsors that are going to be able to view their commercials, and then we'll be right back with Bishop Aretha Morton talking about the Black Church. See you in a minute.
The Center for Business Growth is an incubation center. And as an incubation center, we have new and emerging businesses coming to the beautiful Claymont Community Center on the 2nd floor, where we do nothing but grow businesses. I am a member of the National Professional Women's Association, and I'm also the only certified National Business Incubation Association member in Delaware. So I look forward to working with the clients. I look forward to growing the incubator I look forward to having a fantastic and rewarding experience. As our clients today go and grow, we invite you to come into the center, grow your business, and go back into the community to develop the economy in Newcastle County.
The reason why we decided to join the Center for Business Growth is because we felt as though some of the training and the networking and a host of other services they offer would allow us to grow to the next level and be able to provide jobs for Delawareans. And that's our ultimate goal, and that's what we're passionate about.
First State Weddings needed the Center for Business Growth. We needed help from A to Z. They provided business training, they helped us write a business plan, we increased our sales, we acquired insurance, we were assisting with technology and marketing.
In addition, each business will receive individual consultations and attend monthly group meetings. Educational and support services will be available from DFLY, its partners, and other local agencies.
The Center for Business Growth offered me a place where I can call my office. After working out of my home for many years, the center actually gave me a place, a phone, a computer, where I can now, have meetings with my clients rather than my dining room table. I think that was a big attribute for me, from the center, as well as networking, different classes on financial literacy, marketing, and all kinds of strategies that will help your business grow as well as mine.
To find out more about the Center for Business Growth, please log on to www.dfli.org or call 302-792-1200. Make your business grow today.
"75% of your users will visit your website after viewing your video. 80% of your online visitors will watch a video, while only 20% will actually read the content in its entirety, because video is the key." Blue Films Media Group, Delaware's #1 media company. Follow us on Facebook.
Excellent presentation, excellent workshop.
I learned so much about grant writing in 2.5 hours than I ever thought I'd learn.
Gave me a lot of information that I really can use to identify grants.
It was very concise and to the point to give you some ideas of how to browse the various sites and source out information, not just on a federal, but a state and a local entity as well.
I think Patrick's delivery was absolutely amazing. He broke it down for everybody so that everyone in the room could really hear and understand what the process is and how to go about it. Excellent workshop. I recommend it to anyone who is looking to get a grant for their organization or for their mission.
Expertise, experience, and results. To learn more, follow us on Twitter at PatrickPat803. Email us at globalpartners202@gmail.com.
Welcome back to The Exchange. I'm your host, Dr. Donald Morton. It is my pleasure to have sitting next to me Bishop Aretha Morton, my beloved mother. And I wanted to thank her so much for coming. She agreed to come on and talk about the state of the Black church. There was a time that the Black church was the cornerstone of Black life, that you could find not just on every corner of Black church, but a Black church doing something for its community. I wanted to kind of bring you into some conversations my mother and I have had in her living room when I sit on her floor, get an opportunity to hear her wisdom. I wanted to bring it to the audience today. So thank you for tuning in. Welcome, Bishop.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here.
I appreciate this invitation.
Yes, ma'am.
I really do.
This is a slot you once owned.
Yes, I did, and if you're not careful, I'm going to
take it back. Well, let's pray that everything goes well and that we'll have you on as much as you want to come on. I wanted to talk about the state of the black church. If we look at the black church today in comparison to what the black church was when you were growing up, when you entered ministry, are there drastic differences between the two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely so. You know, one of the things is it wasn't. I was raised United Methodist, as you know, but the Sunday school, teachers, the pastor, a lot of our elementary school teachers were also members of our churches and what have you. And when you talk about nurturing and loving and caring, that's what the black church was the forerunner of practically everything that needed to be done. It was done under the auspices of the church.
Yes,
and of course, I'll never forget this because my grandmother, which was your great-grandmother, was my idol. And Ezion Church had a time that they would go out and knock on doors to find out if people wanted to be saved, if they needed anything, and all of that sort of thing. We wanted to invite the youth to Vacation Bible School. They want to invite the youth to Sunday school. You know, the church is where I found out that Jesus loved me. Mm-hmm. So there were other youth. Our community was kind of like this. A lot of our young people went to St. Joe's. Okay? A lot of our people went to the Methodist Church, and a lot of people went to the Baptist Church. But we discovered that the church was what was needed in our community. That's where we got our nurturing from. That's, you know, and I was getting ready to say, my grandmother knocked on a door of a person's house, and the lady mistook her for somebody that her husband was messing with.
Wow.
And almost got my grandmother hurt. So of course my grandfather was not quite as saved as the rest of us. So his first statement was, you know, if Ezion Church wants these people to come to church, they'll go after them themselves.
Gotcha.
So that with that kind of attitude, there's a lot of people out there that could become a part of the church, especially those of us that are African American. But son, it has to be told true that there's so many things that we failed at.
Wow.
We can't blame anybody but ourselves.
Let's talk about that. Talk to me about what those things are. Where did the black church, because there are some individuals, even colleagues of mine, who would suggest to you and I that there is no further such thing as the black church. Dr. Eddie Glaude wrote an article years ago called "Is the Black Church Dead?" Mm-hmm. And the black church in the form that you knew it when you were growing up, even St. Joe's, Ezion, all of these black spaces, we had the emergence or the emerging of the prosperity gospel and all those kinds of things that displaced what the black church was once about. So is that one of the things that we did wrong? And what are the other things that you suggest?
The black church was the community, okay? When you think about the fact that practically everybody on your street, okay, in our block, on East 10th Street.
Teachers Row, right?
Teachers Row. You know, they went to Bethel, Ezion, okay, because the folks that went to Bethel were called the Bethelites.
Got you.
The folk that went to Ezion were called the Ezionites.
Got you.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I ended up being a Baptist, which is too long a story for this show. But, you know, it was a community. You know, it was a community. It was nothing for Reverend Light, who was the pastor of Ezion Church, to come and sit on the porch with my grandfather, because they were friends, okay? And of course, you know, the conversation, I had to respect them. It was put in us to respect the preacher, which things have so gotten away. So there's disrespect now, where it used to be respect, okay? As you've heard me say from time to time, you can't stand in the pulpit and preach stuff that telling everybody else what to do, and you're not doing it yourself. So folks have really lost, watch this word, trust.
Got you. In the black church.
In the black church.
Is there two questions, because I think you bring a valid point when you talk about the integrity of the pulpit.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that you're known for the integrity that you have, the character that you have. At the same time, while you have character and integrity, you've been incredibly open and have written about some of the frailties of your life and mistakes that you've made.
Right.
So where's the balance between, yes, living up to the standard God has, and also being honest about the mistakes that we make?
Well, the young people say to me, I keep it 100. You know what I mean? I keep it 100. And they want folk that they can trust. You know, from being there, you know, I've had the Crips and the Bloods to come up in tab, okay? Because as I heard earlier while I was sitting in the green room, folk are looking for love.
Yes.
They're looking for love. We have penned our church to be the house that love built, okay? Yes. Which means I'm not going to turn you away, okay? One of my greatest deacons came up in that church every Sunday drunk as a cooter.
Absolutely.
Before he became a deacon.
What's a cooter?
I don't know. Somebody out there knows what a cooter is. But you know, he kept coming.
Yes.
And we kept showing him love until eventually he stopped.
Yes.
He stopped cold turkey.
Yes.
You understand? So the folks, the young people especially, my heart goes out to them. I used to be angry because they wouldn't come to church, they wouldn't listen, but then I had to search. You have to look at yourself. Why are they not coming? What have we done to cause them to be away?
Or not done, right?
Yeah.
A part of a conversation that Ron and I had today was when I frame contextually the black church, I frame it within the context of an organization that was socio-politically active. It was full of outreach. It did something not just for the members of its church, but for the members of the community that were not necessarily a part of the congregation.
Right.
How do we get back to that? How do we get back to a black church that is concerned about community? When I read even about Bethel or the AME Church Universal, one of the things that it says, God our Father, Jesus our Redeemer, man our brother, every man, not just those that were in the pews, but every. How do we get back to a black church that is concerned about?
You got to build the trust back. You really do. You've got, if you're going to say that, that's a part of the integrity piece. If you got to let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. If you're going to say that you're going to help these young people, you know, get jobs, then we've got to show them, first of all, the need for an education. We got to do that. And they've got to see us as folk. I'll probably get corrected for this, But
Who gonna correct you?
I don't know. But if we can't come together,
Yes.
the black clergy,
Yes. Yes.
okay,
Yes.
and the black church,
Yes.
the AMEs are not better than the UMEs,
Yes.
and the AUFMPs ain't
Yes.
better than this,
Yes.
that, and the other. But that's what they see, the separation.
Yes.
Not only do we have separation of church and state, we have separation among each other.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much
You're
for coming
welcome.
on. And you were just getting wound up.
Yes, I was.
So thank you so much for coming.
You're
Any
welcome.
final wisdom that you want to give before we close this segment?
I just would desire that, you see, I'm a Wilmingtonian, and I'd love to see our city come back to at least some of the things
Yes, ma'am.
that we once had.
And I think a part of that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Black church again has to reemerge and re-image as an institution, as Bishop said, that the community trusts, that can be trusted to meet the needs of the community, and that can be there for persons who are hurting humanity, which is, I believe, what Jesus comes to deal with. I want to thank again Bishop for coming.
You're welcome.
And of course she'll be back, and she can host, and I can go to the beach one fourth Sunday.
Well, we'll see that all right.
Y'all pray. If y'all pray and call in letter writing campaigns and all that, I guarantee you she'll do it. We'll be back after a word from our sponsor.
Bless you now.